Etruscans, the civilization that preceded Rome. What if the city we call Rome, its gods, its arches, its political rituals, wasn't invented by Romans at all? What if the civilization that built Rome's blueprint was absorbed so completely that history almost forgot it existed? The Etruscans occupied ancient Etruria, modern Tuscany and parts of Umbria, from roughly 900 BCE onward. They built walled cities, traded across the Mediterranean, and dominated central Italy for centuries before Rome was a footnote. Cultural assimilation means adopting the practices, values, and norms of a dominant culture, often leading to the blending or outright loss of the original. The Etruscans are one of history's most complete examples of that process playing out. Around 600 BCE, Etruscan kings, the Tarquins, ruled Rome directly. Under them, Rome was transformed from a cluster of hilltop villages into a city with drainage systems, temples, and a public forum. They built the infrastructure Rome would inherit. Etruscan religion was elaborate. Divination through animal livers, augury by bird flight, a detailed priesthood. The Romans adopted these practices wholesale. The Capitoline triad of Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva was originally an Etruscan divine grouping. The Etruscans mastered the arch and the vault long before Roman engineers made them famous. Etruscan city gates at Volterra and Perugia still stand today, voussoir arches intact after 2,500 years. The same structural logic Rome would use to span continents. The Etruscans weren't simply inventors. They were translators. Through trade with Greek colonies in southern Italy and Sicily, they absorbed Hellenistic elements, mythology, pottery styles, alphabetic writing, and passed them northward and westward to Rome. The alphabet Romans used, the one you're reading in right now, descended from a Greek alphabet the Etruscans adapted and passed to Latins around 700 BCE. Every letter in this sentence passed through Etruscan hands before it reached yours. Here's the tension. A civilization that built Rome's streets, shaped its gods, and handed it an alphabet should be as famous as Rome itself. Instead, by 100 BCE, Etruscan was a dying language, and Etruscan identity was dissolving. How does a culture that dominant simply disappear? In 396 BCE, Roman general Marcus Furius Camillus sacked Veii, the most powerful Etruscan city, after a decade-long siege. Rome didn't just defeat Veii. It absorbed its population, redistributed its land, and repopulated it with Roman settlers. Rome's most powerful assimilation tool wasn't the sword, it was citizenship. As Etruscan cities submitted or were conquered between the 4th and 1st centuries BCE, their elites were gradually granted Roman citizenship. With citizenship came Roman law, Roman language, and Roman identity. Heritage erosion isn't an event, it's a process. Etruscan inscriptions grow rarer after 200 BCE. By the reign of Augustus, Etruscan was spoken only in ritual contexts, preserved by priests who no longer understood it. The language outlasted the culture by decades, hollow and ceremonial. But here's what most histories skip. Cultural assimilation isn't a one-way process. Even as Etruscans became Roman, Rome was becoming Etruscan, absorbing its religion, engineering, symbols, and ceremony at every step. The current ran both directions. Consider the fasces, the bundle of rods and an axe carried by Roman magistrates as a symbol of authority. Etruscan in origin, Roman magistrates inherited it from Etruscan kings. That symbol, is carved into the speaker's podium in the United States House of Representatives today. The gladiatorial games Romans are famous for originated as Etruscan funeral rituals. Combat at the graveside honored the dead with blood sacrifice. Rome adopted the form, stripped the ritual meaning, and scaled it into mass entertainment, keeping the structure, losing the source. This raises a harder question. If Etruscan religion became Roman religion, if Etruscan engineering became Roman engineering, if Etruscan symbols became Roman symbols, did Etruscan civilization truly disappear, or did it survive, disguised inside the civilization that replaced it? Etruscan aristocratic families didn't vanish. Many reinvented themselves as Roman. The Caecina family of Volterra, prominent in Etruscan politics, reappears in Roman records as a distinguished Roman clan. They changed the language they wrote in. The bloodline continued. The social war of 91 BCE, in which Italian allies fought Rome for full citizenship rights, accelerated everything. By 89 BCE, Rome extended citizenship broadly across Italy. Etruscans became legally Roman. The administrative distinction that had preserved a separate Etruscan identity was erased by decree. Cultural assimilation accelerates in contact zones, places where different peoples trade, intermarry, and govern together. Central Italy in the 4th century BCE was exactly that. Etruscan, Latin, Samnite, and Greek communities overlapped. Boundaries blurred through daily life, not just conquest. We opened by asking who really built Rome. The Cloaca Maxima, Rome's great sewer that still drains the Forum today, was an Etruscan engineering project. The city's first paved streets, its earliest temples, its drainage, all Etruscan. Rome inherited a city, then claimed to have built it. Etruscan women occupied a strikingly different social position than Greek or early Roman women. They attended public banquets alongside men, were named in family records, and appeared on sarcophagi as full individuals. Roman writers noted this with discomfort. It was a cultural signature that assimilation eventually erased. Cultural assimilation can produce genuine enrichment, but only when the absorbed tradition leaves a structural mark. The Ludi Capitolini, Rome's athletic and musical festival held on the Capitoline Hill, evolved directly from Etruscan games tied to worship of the Capitoline Triad. Romans celebrated it for centuries without crediting its origin. The Etruscans didn't simply fade. They were encoded into Rome. Cultural assimilation, even when it erodes a language and a name, doesn't erase the underlying structure. The Etruscan contribution survived not as a label, but as a foundation, specific, structural, and still standing. A 2019 study published in Science, led by Johannes Krauss and colleagues at the Max Planck Institute, sequenced ancient DNA from Etruscan and Roman period burials in Tuscany. The results showed direct genetic continuity across both periods. The people didn't disappear, only the identity label did. The Etruscan case isn't unique. It's a template. Every expanding empire faces this dynamic. The conquered bring knowledge, technique, and belief that the conqueror needs. Rome needed Etruscan engineering. The Greek-speaking eastern provinces needed Roman infrastructure. Dominance and dependence coexist. Heritage erosion is rarely accidental. The longest surviving Etruscan text is the Liber Linteus, linen wrappings reused as an Egyptian mummy's bandages, now held in Zagreb. Roman-era Egyptians preserved it unknowingly. It contains ritual instructions for Etruscan religious ceremonies. Rome absorbed the practice. A Zagreb museum holds the manual. The Etruscan pattern repeats wherever a dominant administrative language displaces a local one. After 200 BCE, Etruscan inscription rates fell by roughly 80% within 3 generations, not through forced suppression, but through the practical pull of Latin in courts, commerce, and public office. Incentive structures, not edicts, drove the shift. Modern Tuscany actively reclaims its Etruscan heritage. Tarquinia, Cerveteri, and Populonia host UNESCO-listed Etruscan necropolises. Regional identity in Tuscany today is partly constructed around Etruscan distinctiveness, a deliberate counter-narrative to the idea that Rome was the origin of everything Italian. We opened by asking, who really built Rome? The answer? A civilization Rome absorbed so thoroughly that Rome forgot to give it credit. The Etruscans built the city, shaped the religion, handed over the alphabet, and then became Roman, leaving their fingerprints on every stone. Here's the detail that stops most people cold. The Emperor Claudius, who ruled Rome from 41 to 54 CE, wrote a 20-volume history of the Etruscans in their own language. Every copy was lost. When the last library holding them burned, the most comprehensive record of Etruscan civilization went with it, destroyed not by conquest, but by fire and time. The next time you study a dominant civilization, ask what it absorbed and from whom. The Etruscans built Rome's sewers, wrote its religious playbook, and shaped its alphabet, then vanished into the city they constructed. Start with the foundation, and the origin story changes completely. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more.